his candidacy for the Texas legislature. He clarifies the confusion concerning the election, discusses the two major failures of the last legislature, and introduces an innovative way for constituents to have input once he is elected. And now, Candidate Roy Walthall.
My fellow citizens, on December 9, 2011, the day that began this electoral chaos, I traveled to Austin to file my candidacy for the Texas legislature in the Central Texas District 57. Late that night, the Supreme Court of the United States got involved, and now everything is in turmoil. Currently, the district I am filed in stretches 100 miles along the majestic Brazos River from eastern McLennan County to Brazos County and includes the interceding counties of Limestone, Falls, and Robertson, but there's a high probability that all that will change soon. Once the courts decide upon the new district lines and reopen the filings between January 14th and February 1st, my criteria for running or not will be based more on if there is enough commonality within the entire district for anyone to effectively represent all of its diverse interests. I trust that the other 5 who filed with me as of December 19th will do the same. This chaos, however, is a symptom of a deeper problem. This past legislature had 2 important issues on its plate last January: a $27 billion budget shortfall and redistricting that is required every decade. They failed on both. On the budget side, the problem is not spending, which has been cut to the bare bone. It is revenue. To be exact, we in Texas have put all of our revenue eggs in one basket, the state sales tax. It's the most unassuming and least threatening tax on the books. It is also one of the highest in the nation. But woe to our state's bottom line when overall commercial sales are down. For the past several years, this current recession that has affected citizens and businesses alike has also deeply affected our state's revenue. So what did this past legislature do during their 140-day session after being elected in their 2010 landslide and campaigning to fix the economy and find jobs for Texans? Regarding the budget deficit, the legislature did nothing. That resulted in a multi-million-dollar special session that hurriedly passed without a whole lot of thought, a stopgap budget. That budget slashed spending by 16.6% across the board. Cutting government spending sounds great on the campaign trail. In all their announcements, my challengers are demagoguing on that very issue. However, an ill-conceived budget that lacks compassion will hurt millions of Texans. It will cut back on badly needed public services, put thousands of more Texans into unemployment, and can I say as a businessman, it will affect most of us in the private sector by shrinking the number of clients. Regarding redistricting, the problem is not political, it is fairness and representation. Texans historically have witnessed between 2000 and 2010 an explosion in the Hispanic population and a tragic migration of hundreds of thousands of minority refugees to the Texas Gulf Coast region after not 1 but 3 hurricanes devastated our neighbors in Louisiana. Both Texas's white and black populations slowly grew, but proportionally declined. So faced with that demographic reality, what did the past legislature do? Well, it discriminated against Hispanics in a desperate attempt to protect their 2-to-1 Republican majorities in both the House and Senate. And that's the rub. In the Republican landslide of 2010, Texans voted 55% for Rick Perry over Bill White. I get it. 55% of Texans prefer Republicans to Democrats. Yet because of earlier Republican gerrymandering, Republican legislators ended up controlling 67% of the State House and 70% of the State Senate. That 12 to 15% excess political padding was what the San Antonio Federal District Court was trying to correct. Our state of Texas, when compared with the other 9 most populous states, ranks last in per capita spending in education, last in health care, last in infrastructural repair, last in enforcing clean air and water standards, but first in crime, first in poverty, first in unwed teen pregnancies, and first in the number of uninsured people. Of the top 10 states, we have the fewest manufacturing jobs, the lowest wages, and the highest illiteracy. We have these problems because we had a legislature that didn't seriously concern itself in correcting any of those deficiencies. Instead, this legislature that claims to hate Big Brother government spent an inordinate amount of time this past session on intruding into Texas's women's personal rights and making it more difficult for minority voters to exercise their most sacred duty as a citizen, their right to vote. We're Texas. We can do better, but not if we send the same legislative philosophy of icy indifference and retrenchment back to Austin. The time has come in Texas to stop this insanity and return to a time in American history when politicians fully understood that enhancing only the wealthiest among us comes at a horrific cost of denying everything that we value most: our life, our liberty, and our happiness. In my heritage, James Madison is my ancestor. That means nothing. But Madison was the father of our United States Constitution. And my favorite quote of his is, "If men were angels, no government would be necessary." Unlike virtually all of today's political demagogues with their downsized government rhetoric, Madison understood that government is not only needed, but necessary. He, with his friend, fellow Virginian Thomas Jefferson, founded the Democratic Republican Party of the United States to oppose Alexander Hamilton and John Adams' Federalist Party. In the 1800 election showdown, it was the 99%ers against the 1% elites of that time. The Democratic Republicans won by a landslide. And by so doing, they not only changed America, they changed the entire world. Succeeding generations took those great underlying principles and perfected upon them. Andrew Jackson empowered we the people. Abraham Lincoln preserved our Union. Franklin Roosevelt extolled his generation that they would have a rendezvous with destiny. He was correct. That generation of my father and mother weathered the Great Depression and won the most brutal war ever fought. They overcame racial discrimination and they landed on the moon. My generation was asked by another president to do something more for its country than for itself. Another modern president, coincidentally from Texas, envisioned a greater society by trying to eliminate the poverty and despair among the least advantaged of us through better education. His theory, which I adhere to and have witnessed through my own students, was that a better education would provide one with the skills and opportunities to create a vibrant, affluent, and productive middle class. We succeeded. But 45 years later, that great American middle class, the envy of the entire world, is in tatters, as we, the middle class, are currently overtaxed, underemployed, undereducated, and feel politically hopeless. I believe it is that feeling of despair that has spurred on the current Texas Tea Party, and many of their fears in these matters are justified. Today, for the third time, I am again asking for your vote to serve you in the Texas legislature. Nothing in life is easy, especially elections. If one believes that the way things are not the way things should always be. When one desires to be the change agent, the people get anxious. When one offers hope, the people become cautious. Alcuin, a Latin monk, once advised the great Emperor Charlemagne, Vox Populi, Vox Dei, which translated means the voice of the people is the voice of God. But what are the people's voices whispering? That, my fellow Texans, is why we have elections. Therefore, I stand before you today not as a political partisan, because both parties currently have strayed from their founding Democratic Republican principles, and frankly have taken our state and our nation to this moment of partisan peril. My political desire is to return our Texas to what the founders intended. I pledge to create within our legislative district the first participatory democracy within our Republican form of government. I do that upon my word, because when elected, it is not good enough to guess what the people are saying. We in the legislature must know their true intentions. With that as my promise to all voters, whomever you are or whatever you do, based upon citing our Texas Declaration of Independence's preamble, which defines our limited mandate by proclaiming that all political power is inherent in the people and all free governments are founded on their authority and instituted for their benefit. 175 years later, their message still resonates loud and clear, and I pledge every day, as your legislator, to never forget the meaning of their solemn declaration. However, I caution all today, as I did 25 years ago in my Texas Sesquicentennial Celebration speech, that until life is truly sacred, liberty firmly emancipated, and happiness a reality instead of just a pursuit, then our independence is still a declaration, but not an actuality. I would appreciate and be grateful for your support, but thereafter, when elected on November 6th, I must have your wisdom, your input, but most of all, your prayers. May our Father in heaven bless you and your loved ones during this Christmas season, and may our Lord forever bless our beloved Texas as we approach the new year. Thank you very much.